Petrodollar, Eurodollar, and the myths of Petrodollar and De-dollarisation. Based on the EPW article by Engin, Yılmaz, Boran, Bodur, and Sabri, Öncü. For decades, the world has been told a simple story. The United States dominates the global monetary system because oil is priced in dollars. According to this narrative, after the collapse of Bretton Woods, Washington reached a strategic agreement with Saudi Arabia. Oil would be sold in dollars. And the surplus dollars earned by oil exporters would flow back into US Treasury securities. This became known as the Petrodollar System. But what if this story misunderstands how the modern dollar system actually works? To answer that question, we must go back to the beginning of dollar dominance itself. The rise of the dollar did not begin in the 1970s. It began during World War I. While European powers suspended the gold standard during the war, the United States maintained gold convertibility at $20.67 per ounce. As Europe was devastated by war, gold flowed toward America. By 1919, the United States held nearly 40% of the world's monetary gold stock. The dollar gradually displaced the British pound as the preferred currency for trade, settlement, and central bank reserves. Then came Bretton Woods. In 1944, the post-war international monetary system formally institutionalized a dollar-centered global order. The dollar was linked to gold, and other currencies were linked to the dollar. At the time, the United States held roughly 2/3 of the world's monetary gold reserves. But Bretton Woods contained a deep contradiction. The global economy needed increasing amounts of dollar liquidity to grow. Yet confidence in the system depended on the United States maintaining enough gold to support those expanding dollar claims. Over time, foreign dollar claims grew larger than US gold reserves. Foreign central banks increasingly converted dollars into gold. Pressure on the system intensified. And then, in August 1971, President Nixon suspended gold convertibility. The gold window was closed. The Bretton Woods system collapsed. But something even more important had already emerged beneath the surface of global finance. The Eurodollar market. The Eurodollar system did not begin as an American geopolitical project. Its origins were tied to Cold War fears. After World War II, Soviet bloc countries became concerned that dollar assets held directly in the United States could be frozen or seized. To avoid this risk, they moved dollar holdings into European banks, particularly in Paris and London. Then, in the 1950s and 1960s, London banks began actively attracting dollar deposits and extending dollar loans outside the United States. This transformed the Eurodollar market into a global offshore dollar system. And here lies one of the biggest misunderstandings in modern economics. Banks do not lend pre-existing deposits. Banks create deposits when they extend loans or purchased assets. A bank in London could create dollar liabilities. A bank in Singapore could expand dollar liquidity. A bank in Tokyo could generate offshore dollar credit. The world was no longer simply using dollars. The world was creating dollars. This offshore dollar architecture became one of the central pillars of global finance. And importantly, the dollars never truly left the American banking system entirely. Even Eurodollar transactions ultimately required correspondent banking relationships connected to New York and the Federal Reserve System. Now consider what happened after Bretton Woods collapsed. Contrary to popular mythology, the rise in foreign holdings of U.S. Treasury securities began before the famous 1974 U.S.-Saudi agreement. Foreign holdings tripled between 1970 and 1971, well before the oil shock and before the so-called Petrodollar deal. Why? Because foreign central banks were accumulating dollars while attempting to defend exchange rate pegs during the collapse of Bretton Woods. And there is another critical fact often ignored. Oil had already been priced and settled in dollars from the very beginning of the modern oil trade in the 1860s. In fact, by 1973, roughly 75% of global oil trade was already conducted in dollars. So when the United States and Saudi Arabia signed their 1974 agreement, the dollar had already become the dominant currency of global oil markets. The agreement did not create dollar dominance. It operated within an already existing dollar-centered international monetary system. The evidence simply does not support the idea that a single agreement with Saudi Arabia created global dollar hegemony. The true foundation of dollar dominance was much larger. A global offshore financial architecture centered around dollar balance sheets. And over time, this architecture expanded dramatically. Global banks created offshore dollar loans and debt securities on an